Hi there, welcome along to Outdoor Gear Chat to put my teeth in. This is episode 25, and today we're going to be talking kit lists for the national three peaks, I guess, isn't it? So Snowdon, Scafell, Pike, Ben Nevis. But yeah, I'm joined as always by Cathy. Hi.
Hi Wayne, how you doing?
I'm awesome, thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I've packed my rucksack especially. Look, here it is.
I
No one else
know
can see it except you.
we've got props, which is always a worrying thing for me, as although it's not up to the standard of the tents one where you were in a tent in your lounge there. So yeah, we're talking about kit that you might need for National Three Peaks attempt is probably the easy way to put that. Would you say?
Yeah. These kit list podcasts are all part of our expedition event that we're running out of Capel in October in 2022. But we're hoping it's going to become an annual event, and it's really important for us to remember as a very technical shop. The word expedition and adventure is broad ranging. It really does encompass everybody's adventure and everybody's idea of an expedition. And while we may have been fortunate over the years to have been on to the summit of Snowdon and Scafell, Pike and Ben Nevis a number of times, for some people it's taken them a huge amount of commitment and a huge amount of energy and mental energy for that to be their big thing. And I think that's really important, and it should be celebrated. Our British mountains are unique in that they throw every bit of weather at you that they possibly
Indeed.
can.
Well, and that I will come on to that. That's been my experience just in the last 12 months in having been on each of these mountains that we're going to be talking about as well. And that's what I enjoy about these, to be honest, is I'm not as technical as yourself. I don't, but I do a little bit. I'm at the bottom end probably of adventuring and stuff like that. As far as that, particularly in this country, I've not done much abroad. But yeah, I am privileged to be able to work with people because I do some mountain leading stuff. Privileged to work on people that are doing charity attempts predominantly on all in all sorts of ways in the United Kingdom, but on these three mountains. And see, what people actually go through to achieve that. On just one of the mountains is incredible, but if they're doing three within a short space of time, it is quite some endurance attempt,
It's a
isn't
big
it?
thing, isn't it? It's a big thing. Yeah.
So if you don't know, if you're just listening to this for the first time, the national three peaks, or these mountains that we're talking about, are the highest peaks in each of the countries in the United Kingdom, aren't they? Yeah, so that is so.
I know, because we haven't
Ben,
included Northern Ireland. That would be the fourth
sorry,
peak
I know
then,
that.
wouldn't
I,
it? Yeah.
I always get that wrong. It's Great Britain, is it? Yeah. So Great Britain, sorry. Right, so Ben Nevis is the highest peak in Scotland. Scafell Pike is the highest peak in England, and Snowdon is the highest peak in Wales. And I guess traditionally or increasingly maybe might be the better term, if you are doing all three in a oneer, or you do the highest first. So Ben Nevis, and then drive to Scafell Pike in the north of England, and then onto North Wales for Snowdon. And having done Ben Nevis this year, I can see why people would do it that way as well. It's a touch higher than the other ones, isn't it? And I guess you and I had that conversation recently as well. You're going from sea level with
You are,
as
yeah.
well.
So you do get to do every meter of height, and it's hard won. Whereas Snowdon, you drive and park halfway up. Scafell, you'll be pretty high as well before you even start walking. But Ben Nevis is, you are literally starting from sea level, and you get every you get your money's worth on Ben Nevis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if we're going up those mountains, and again, we see a lot at the moment about. Well, I see a lot in my timeline on social media about people being adventure smart. I think is the phrase that a lot of our mutual friends use as far as understanding what conditions they're going to be facing,
Mm.
because it is very, very different from ground level, wherever that is, to the top of the mountain.
Oh, very definitely. And that is rule one, start off with a proper weather forecast, not the one on the telly. Find yourself a mountain weather forecast. It's easy peasy to find online. Mountain Weather Information Service, a mountain specific. And that just gives you a really good grounding to make your decision on what kit to take with you. Because on a gorgeous, lovely, sunny day, of course, you could go out. I mean, years ago, people just had standard equipment. They didn't have outdoor equipment, and off they went. But the odds are that it's going to probably throw some weather at you, and it's worth being well informed and well equipped to have a day that's perhaps a little bit uncomfortable, as opposed to a day that could just go horribly wrong.
Yeah, indeed. And that my recent experience of Ben Nevis was it was relatively benign at ground level, but as we moved up the mountain, it got increasingly colder, wetter, and when we're on the top, the wind hit as well. So suddenly we had mild hypothermia hitting, and that we were equipped for the weather and the conditions. So we put on extra layers, which we'll come on to, but others that were going up were less prepared, shall we say? I've just seen. I was just while you were talking, then just googled the height of Ben Nevis and looked at the English translation for it as well. Did you know what the English translation of Ben Nevis is?
No, I didn't know.
Venomous mountain.
Venomous mountain.
Venomous mountain is come up as but yeah, it's Wikipedia, so it's not all not always that accurate, but yeah, I can well believe it after my experience. So anyway, so we're going to be going up one of the national three peaks. What do we need to be kitted out with? So we're talking about the weather conditions there, and even if it is a glorious summer day, chances are by the time we get to the top, it's going to be very different anyway, isn't it? So
yeah, it's almost certainly going to be cooler. It's almost certainly going to be windier. And if you just get away with it being cooler and windier, then you're lucky. There is no shelter on top of Ben Nevis other than an emergency shelter. And be prepared if you're going up in winter, as when I did. It was absolutely frozen solid. There was no way of getting into it. So that's worth noting. There is a cafe on top of Snowdon that's very famous. You can take the lovely railway up there in the summer. That is also closed for most of the winter. Often from now through till Easter. So be prepared for nothing to be on top. And then Scafell, of course, there's a stone circle, and that's it. So don't rely on there being something at the summit to shelter.
And don't rely on being able to get any supplies from the bottom to the top unless you are on Snowdon in the middle of summer, which is a very different kettle of fish. Is it interestingly? I saw on Facebook the other day a friend who's a mountain leader had gone up Ben Nevis on the 8th of October, so Friday, Saturday, and it snowed. It snowed on Ben Nevis already. So it is fully covered. So you need to be sort of prepared for that. And so you've got a fair sized rucksack that you were showing just then, Cathy.
Yeah, I've got my little rucksack here, but I think actually before anything else comes footwear, because if your feet aren't happy or comfortable, you're not going to enjoy your day out. And if you're putting in all that effort to go up somewhere, then you need to have comfy feet. So you need to make sure that your footwear is strong enough to support your feet, and with lots of ankle support, and suitable for the ground conditions that you're going to expect. So for the summer, that could just be rocky terrain, which would be perfect. But if it's winter, then perhaps you're thinking about using crampons, and it needs to be a stiffer boot that is crampon compatible, because that's something quite different. And that's all questions you can ask us about if you pop into the shops. No problem, we can answer that for you and advise. But having comfy feet and boots or footwear that is suitable for the environment will make a big difference to you enjoying your day, and also how fatigued you'll feel at the end of the day. Because if your items of footwear are supportive, then you're going to get back down to the bottom feeling a lot more sprightly than if your feet are having to work super hard just to support you. But going on to a rucksack, I think This one here is a little 28 litre, and for summer I probably wouldn't fill that. That depends, of course, on how large a lunch you like to take with you, because I am fond of the large pack lunch, I have to say. I do go with far too much food usually.
But I think you might have mentioned in one of our other podcasts, you don't often come back with much. Would that be right?
No,
yeah,
invariably
you
it all
don't.
gets eaten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't return home with much, despite
No.
you
Or if I
overpacking
do,
it.
it's gone by the time I've got home, because I've been moving fast. I've got back down to the car and just basically opened my mouth and put the entire contents of my lunchbox into me before I've driven home, because probably if I have been moving fast and then stopped, I'll get cold. And the only way to heat yourself back up is to eat, to give yourself some fuel and get your battery levels back up again. So food is critical. So make sure you take plenty, and of course water as well. Water is even more critical than food, in fact. So drinking, carrying that water, being disciplined to stop and to drink your water. That is quite hard, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And I use chest pouches now for that reason, because I am absolutely rubbish. So those are where you've got your water bottles as built into your part of your rucksack, basically, aren't they? And so there I can drink, because I've got a little straw that comes out of my Raid Light water bottles, so I can drink without doing it.
Podcast, because that was such a little dainty little.
Yeah, no, well, it is exactly that. That is but that's what I have to do, because I won't stop. I am rubbish, and I have failed events, or had got into trouble on needed medical attention on events because I haven't drunk enough.
Drinking
for that.
Drinking is king, and loads of rucksacks you can get now with a little H2O sign on, and you can drop a bladder down the back and just have that tube coming out, and that can just sit over your shoulder. You can just take sips as you go. That's absolutely the easiest way. On a hot day, you can fill your bladder with ice cubes, so you've got a lovely cool back to start with. And actually, if you're out, it's worth remembering, if you are out in the winter, when you suck the water through your tube, blow it back. Because otherwise the water will freeze in the tube and then you can't get any water, which is a desperately miserable experience.
Yeah, indeed, I've been there. Or the water is so cold that it just hits your stomach, and you're just like internally freezing straight away.
Yeah.
I think the medics call that a cold sink, where you get that cold water hitting your stomach, and suddenly everything shuts down, doesn't it? And we have got a podcast on water coming up. As well, which will be another essential listen to, and I guess increasingly as well, I'm seeing a lot of traffic on social media from mountain rescue teams or fell rangers about toileting on the Three Peaks as well. So I mean maybe actually we might want to come back to that on a future podcast, thinking about it. But you've got to bear that in mind, haven't you? Is where is actually again, other than Snowdon, or in summer, there are no facilities for you to be visiting. So it's
and you need to be very careful about making sure when you do go, you're not near any moving water. And just being mindful of what you leave behind. Ideally, carry a trowel. And funny enough, I was thinking we will do this, because we actually have 4 or 5 different types of trowel in stock now, right down to the titanium trowel. So yes, I think that would be a really good one to do in the future.
Well, and even carrying it off as well. I think that's increasingly seems to be the message, is taking poo bags, to be blunt about it, and carrying that stuff off in a dry sack for that reason.
I mean, we do it for dogs.
Indeed.
And actually, it's the done thing in America. So and as I say, we sell bags online and in the shops exactly for that reason. So it's another solution, definitely.
And I guess I'm not sure. Do you stock the book there, How to Poo in the Woods? He says trying not to, which is a fantastic read on all sorts of levels, but talking about what they do in the US. So let's roll it back. I know I've sort of I'm jumping about all over the place, but if I'm going to be doing the Three Peaks, what do I need to wear? So there's can I go up in my trackies and my trainers and a hoodie?
Well, you could, but you probably wouldn't have a very comfortable day. And again, it was a cloudless sky and a little bit breezy, and it was summer. You'd probably be fine. But the odds are very high on our very, very changeable mountains that you're going to come across some wet weather. So you definitely want, I'm going to just delve into my rucksack here, a full set of waterproofs. And those can be super lightweight, they can be full-on winter level waterproofs, whichever, but they can be breathable, they can be basic, as long as you've got something to keep that water off. Trousers, they can have zips up to the knee to help you get them on over the top of boots. They can have zips all the way up to the thigh. They can have zips that undo all together. You can do a full Monty and whip them off and look amazing. But do beware, if you're in a high wind, they can take off, and there is little more disappointing than watching your £300 waterproof trousers fly off.
They disappear like a kite in the distance.
And
I guess that is seeing that if you are just starting out and doing something like this as your, an expedition, as an adventure, there are very cheap alternatives available that will do a great job.
Yeah, if you're just starting out, definitely, and try things out, and then work out what you want, and come in and talk to us and understand why there's such a price difference, because there is a reason, and we can explain why. And it might be that as you progress, if you really like it, you want to go and invest in some better kit that's going to last and last and last. But for that to work at its best, you might need to invest in other layers of clothing underneath that will allow it to work. So it's you want to be informed and make sure you know how everything works, so you can get the best out of your investment, basically.
I was going to say, I think my best investment was I spent 80 quid on a pair of waterproofs, and they're really lightweight, that I could run in them and walk in them as well. And I need to get a new pair anyway because I've lost them. But yeah, they were absolutely fantastic. But before that, I think I'd had a pair from Trespass, which were like 30 quid or something like that. But really, really heavy, really bulky, take up a lot of weight and room in my rucksack. But I've done the job for many years, and I still have them now. I'll be wearing them at the Langdale Marathon in a few weeks for commentary, because the bomb proof, they just they survive everything. So and I guess that coming back to my question about can I do it in trackies and hoodies, I guess our suggestion would be, well, you need to be wearing technical clothing, really, in that as from previous podcasts where we've talked about moisture management and so on, and getting soaked through to our undies, then it's less likely if you're wearing technical clothing that will do a good job to help you with that, won't it?
Yeah, certainly. If you're planning on going out in all weathers, then definitely. But the key thing sort of around all clothing is that it fits as well, because if you have got tracky bottoms and tracky tops, but then you've got a all singing all dancing waterproof, breathable waterproof, that's not going to be able to work with cotton garments underneath it. Cotton garments, when they get wet, can be quite abrasive as well, which can be quite uncomfortable. They get heavy, so there's a strong chance your tracky bottoms are going to end up heading south as you go up, which nobody wants to see. So they do have the limitations. Life can be a lot more comfortable in technical clothing, definitely, but the key really is fit.
And I think we said on previous podcasts, actually, what we all want as outdoor professionals is for people to enjoy the experience and keep coming back and doing it again. And we don't want Duke of Edinburgh to be a miserable experience to put people off doing it. It should be a rewarding, amazing experience to give you that appreciation of the outdoors and the magnificence of nature that keeps you wanting more and more, isn't it? And if you're wearing, we both winced at that when you mentioned cotton, I think, and we both is that it's not a great experience when stuff's starting to chafe and so on.
But it's also important to understand there is going to be discomfort. You are going to sweat. No clothing, whatever the marketing people tell you, is going to stop you sweating. Your body has to. If you don't sweat, you'll just explode. So it's how you manage that, basically, and that's where technical clothing comes into its own. It's designed specifically to transfer your sweat out through to the next layer of clothing, to the next layer of clothing, and then to its best of its ability out into the atmosphere, depending on how warm and wet it is outside of your jacket. If there's a big temperature difference inside your jacket and outside your jacket, then that waterproof is going to work very, very efficiently. If there isn't that big temperature differential, then it's not going to work as efficiently. But clothing, a lot of technical clothing is made to be close fitting, and there is good reason for that. That's because this clothing needs to touch your skin to pick up that sweat so that it can start that moisture movement out. So if you've got very, very baggy clothing, that's not perhaps going to, or baggy technical clothing, that's perhaps not going to work as effectively. Saying that, if it's a super hot day, and we have had quite a few this year, you know, really hot days, then there's nothing better than a loose fitting cotton shirt, actually, because that is the coolest form of clothing you can wear in that kind of heat. But you then do need to be very careful about how much water you carry, and whether, if you're banking on finding more water higher up, you may not if it's been a very long dry period.
Yeah, indeed. And then, yeah, that's where we see people getting into trouble for different reasons, is that dehydration, and is an unpleasant experience, say the least. So yeah, and then you mentioned earlier on about, you know, what we wear on our feet as well, and I have a contentious view which I've disagreed with a few friends on recently, but about using trail shoes for doing, you know, for doing mountain walks with. But that, and I use those regularly to go out in the mountains. But that, I guess I've been doing that for a long time. My ankles are a lot stronger. But they do suit me for reasons, and I wouldn't do that in the winter particularly. That's a very different, you know. Well, even I don't have that experience to be going up the mountains in full winter conditions. Anyway, that's for sure.
No, and I think trail shoes have their place. And I think that it was a really important thing you said there is you've been using them for a long time, and you're a runner as well. Now, if you think of your feet as being just little sacks of bones held together with ligaments and muscles, if your job is mostly sitting at a desk and then getting in your car and driving to and from work, or sitting at home and working from home, and you don't actually get out on lumpy, bumpy trails very often, your feet as sacks of bones filled with ligaments and muscles are not going to be brilliantly toned. If you're a runner who goes out in the fells on a regular basis and has been doing so for quite some time, your feet are going to be a lot stronger, and almost sort of more attuned to that environment. So to go out in a pair of trail shoes, which are lovely and grippy because they've got a very soft sole unit, they'll wear out a lot faster as a result of having that sort of soft, grippy sole unit. But your feet will be more fatigued if they're not used to being on that kind of terrain. And also, the top of a fell shoe is very, very light. It's just mesh, pretty much. So if you're on scree, or you're on sharp rock, there's not a lot of protection for the upper of your foot if you're not comfortable in that terrain. If you've got a boot, you've got a lot more protection around the top of your foot. You've got a much stronger midsole. And all of that is going to create a lovely envelope of support around your foot and your ankle, and allow you to sort of end the day feeling a lot less fatigued as a result. And your boot will last longer because it's made of much stronger materials.
And again, I guess the message from both our comments there, and coming back to the start of the conversation, is training is getting yourself conditioned by wearing that footwear in the appropriate conditions. You know, it's not just wearing walking boots while you're wandering around town, for example. It is getting out off-road and being, you know, training for these mountains, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, so for example, I'm a year away from going on an expedition, but actually I'll be getting my boots pretty much very soon, and I'll be using them all through winter, not necessarily going out in snow, but I'll just probably going to look really weird when I can fit it in. I'm probably going to be ending up doing some loops around our village in the darkness up. We've got a very steep hill with a rucksack full of ropes, you know. And if that's all the training I can fit in for that day, in my big boots with a heavy rucksack on my back, that's what I'm going to be doing. And I'll start now to make sure I'm fit enough to go to altitude next year. So there's a big time commitment, and you can get away, especially when you're in your youth. You can get away with skipping off on these huge days out and not doing a lot of training and coming back down, and your body will just heal. It's a magical thing. But as you get older, your body's not quite so forgiving, and you just end up damaging yourself, basically, which is frustrating at best. So yeah, if you can put a bit of time in and get a bit of extra training in, then all your body's going to do is thank you for it. You're just going to recover a lot faster.
Exactly. It's going to be a far more pleasant experience at the time while you're doing it, and give you the best chance of achieving your goal, whether if that's one or all three of these mountains, or and then post event, you're not going to be in as bad a state either. So we talked about boots, footwear, then onto stinky feet. So we've done a podcast on this as well about socks, or what socks to wear.
Oh, socks. Do you know what? Socks have almost got the most technology in of any product that we stock. I can nerd out on socks for like hours. It's amazing. If you just pick up a pair of socks in our shops and you look at all the different colours involved in them, every single one of those colours is a different yarn. And there'll be a reason for every single one of those yarns, and why they're in a particular place in that sock there, whether it's for elasticity, whether it's for breathability, whether it's for cushioning, whether it's for support. It's really quite amazing, and explains why they're so expensive per pair. But good foot care, comfy feet. Again, if you get the fit of your boots right, that's great, but you need to fit them with the socks that you're going to be wearing. And then the newer those socks, the more cushioned they are. The content of those socks, if they've got more wool, they'll be toasty and warm. Perhaps they've got more Cool Max, which is a fibre designed to help again wick away moisture. If you're going to be walking in summer, that can work. Right through to gorgeous alpaca wool, which is like the 5-star of socks.
As opposed to just a standard sports brand cotton sock. Really,
please don't use cotton in your socks.
I know, really
you can
bad
get
idea.
away with cotton in your clothing, but please don't use cotton in your socks. And that is purely because of the abrasion side of things. You want to do all you can to mitigate blisters, basically, and cotton is a real culprit when it comes to blisters.
And I mentioned that I was working recently, like a multi-day marathon walk, and with different people doing the different marathons every day. But we saw a good chunk of that was people turning up in the morning and just going, right, we're going to have a challenge come mile 20 with their feet, and absolutely that panned out. It was just suddenly like it's a very unpleasant thing. It's a very debilitating thing to get those blisters, isn't it? It's
miserable, absolutely miserable. But we do actually we did a brilliant podcast with Dr. Will Duffin, didn't we? And he did everything you need to know about blisters in 60 seconds as part of his I've Got an Ouchie podcast, and that was well worth a listen.
But again, I don't want to brush over what you just said as well about you've got the boots fitted right, and they're the really comfy boots, but actually you need the socks that will go in those boots for the event as well. So it's you don't want a pair of try a pair of boots on with a pair of socks that you're not going to be wearing, and then you get a nice pair of thick walking socks, and suddenly it's all, your feet are all squashed into your boots there.
It's surprisingly critical.
I absolutely agree with that. It's and then other stuff. So we mentioned most of the body covering, if you will, as far as technical clothing's concerned. But another three key bits of kit that actually in winter I never leave the house without a hat. We're allowed to mention the brand Buff.
I think everybody uses the word buff. It's like vacuum, isn't it?
It is. It's and something to go on your hands as well. So nice hat. Whatever that, a bobble hat, woolly hat, and stop it. You just kind of Cathy's dressing up in the appropriate attire just to demonstrate, which you can't hear obviously, but is amusing me greatly. And gloves, yeah, and something for your hands. And I know we've mentioned this in other podcasts as well, and increasingly, and again on a couple of events recently, or a couple of mountain leading sessions recently, I've had mittens rather than fingers. I really struggle when my hands are cold and wet to get my fingers into a normal glove. So I've got a mitten glove with a thumb, or like they could be fingerless with a mitten over top, if you will.
Yeah, there's some great options there. But again, do you know what's really critical with gloves is that they fit. Loads of people just buy gloves and don't fit them. You think about your fingers, everybody's fingers are different lengths, different widths, and maybe your fingers podge out when you're out for the day. Mine always do.
That's it, sausage fingers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So make sure your gloves fit, because if they're too big, they're not going to keep your hands warm. If they're too small, all they're going to do is compress the insulation, so they're not going to keep your hands warm either. So make sure you get your gloves fitting properly. I'm just also going to do a shout out for the windproof layer, because a lot of people don't use windproofs, but oh my word, I find I actually use a windproof a lot more than a waterproof. It's super light. I think this one I have here is a Rab vaporized Marmot dry climb, similar kind of thing, really light, but keeping that wind off. You can layer it up, it's super breathable, you can use it within your layers, you can just put your waterproof on over the top. So versatile. And the great thing about all of this equipment is, yes, it is an investment, but you can use it for any different sport. So if I've been swimming in the lake, I'll chuck this on. If I'm paddling, I might chuck this on. If I finish running, I'll chuck this on. If I'm out on the hill, I'll probably start wearing this and layer up or down underneath it accordingly, and then put a waterproof on as needs. So it is super, super, super versatile. It can be used cycling, gardening, all manner of different ways. So yeah, windproofs, have a look in store for windproofs, because they are a very, very worthy investment.
That's it. And then I meant to mention earlier on actually with clothing, but didn't, is that multi-layer approach, is that having a base layer, having something like a fleece, having a windproof, having a waterproof. And again, we talk about the difference in those in our other podcasts as well. But as you say, nothing beats going into a store and talking to your staff who've got that wealth of experience in the outdoors that can advise, or and don't get that one because it looks shiny necessarily, but this one might be more suited to what you're doing, and not forking out hundreds and hundreds of pounds necessarily to start off with anyway on a piece of kit because you think it's going to be the best thing. It might not suit what you want.
No, and you might actually already own a piece of kit that something something else will work really well with, or you might have something that doesn't fit quite as you want, and by getting a different layer to pop underneath, you can make it fit properly, and then it'll work more efficiently. So fit is key. Definitely, come in and try stuff on, because particularly if you're layering your waterproof, you want to size that correctly so you can fit stuff underneath. I had a classic case with a customer recently. They'd seen a jacket in a sale, bought it, perfect, brilliant, boom, done. And then actually came back because they're like, actually, I can't fit anything underneath it, and bought the next size up, because that was a much, much better fit for them, and a jacket that they could use all year round rather than just the summer.
Yeah, and again, you guys understand that, is it? You have to go through that process of trying stuff on underneath. Don't be afraid of doing that. I know, I've made bad purchasing decisions because I've gone, all right, that fits me. And then, like you said, 3 months down the line, weather conditions have changed. And I'm like, actually, this is flipping useless. But yeah. And then on back to your rucksack, what else have you got in there? So essentials that particularly now as we're recording this, we're into October. The darker nights are already coming in. Head torch. Make sure your batteries are charged.
Yeah, yes. Make sure your batteries are charged. Yes, ha ha ha.
I'm saying that as much for me. I was working on an event recently, went out and tried to turn my head torch on, and it didn't come on because I
It's not
charged.
just me.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
it
you
isn't.
didn't do that the day after recording the podcast saying whatever.
No, exactly. Yeah, it is. But yeah, fresh batteries are making sure that your head torch is charged when you come back in. Sorry, but I was talking over you then. Sorry, Cathy. But yeah, first aid kit and knowing how to use everything in that, as Dr. Will said on the previous one.
Yeah.
Map and compass and knowing how to use those.
Yeah. Map and compass, knowing how to use them. A little tiny small bivy bag. I actually always carry a little bit of toilet roll as well, actually, for those little moments.
Yeah, well, you need to. I always carry a pack of tissues for the same reason. That, and I guess that's a parental thing as well. There's tissues in every piece of kit I own. But then making sure those aren't left anywhere to blow around on the mountainside. And then and mobile phone fully charged.
A little battery if you're going out in the winter, perhaps, because phone batteries will just diminish in no time in the cold. So a little power bank is always worth using. And actually, I'll put all of my items in a little filing system in different coloured dry bags. A, so they're protected from the weather, but also B, all my first aid stuff I know is in the red one. Maybe my clothing is in the blue one, my food is in the green one. So it means if I've got big gloves on, I've got a load of jacket on, it's blowing a hoolie, I can't really see what I'm doing, I'm a bit tired, I can just open my pack, there's the blue one, perfect, and I can get what I need out of my pack. I can access it very, very quickly and efficiently.
And that's I've written on it in Sharpie on some of my dry sacks as well, whether they're like food, dry stuff, dry clothing, wet clothing, or whatever. But yeah, that's just. And I guess importantly, just on the map and compass bit, I was going to say that downloading OS Locate as an app onto your phone, just in case you do get into trouble and you're not entirely sure where you are. It's a free app from Ordnance Survey, and if you do need to contact the emergency services, that will give you a full grid reference rather than 3 words, which seems to be commonly used at the moment and isn't. There have been a few issues with that. Well, I think it was Keswick Mountain Rescue. It was about to send them to the wrong side of the lake, I think, wasn't it?
It's not infallible. 3 words is it? That OS Locate thing is super handy, actually. If you're not, it can really help you build your confidence with your map reading. Because if you pop it away and then you work with your map and you're like, oh, I'm not too sure, and you can just get your phone out and like, I'm exactly where I thought I was. Cool. And away you go. So it's really nice to use that in conjunction. But there's no substitute for being able to read a map.
No, and I guess the OS Locate thing is good. You can share it to different social media platforms as well. So if you do get in trouble and there's no signal for whatever reason, then you can share that on there. And food, food was the other thing that you mentioned early on. Having food that you enjoy, having food that's going to work for you in different conditions, not just sugary stuff. Is taking a mix of proper food.
I have to say, I'm a big fan of the lunch box. Actually, I did go for many years just chucking everything in bags, but it just gets so squished. Certainly with my rucksack filing anyway, it gets completely squished. So I've actually gone old school now and gone for the SIG lunchbox, and it's very satisfying. I think I've just reached an age, Wayne. Sit there, unclip my lunchbox, and a little frisson of excitement. Oh, what have I got to look forward to?
Knowing you as I do, it's just another piece of kit that you don't yet have. That will be my observation on that one. Just for the cake. Like that, just for the cake. With that, we're coming to the end of this recording. That was episode 25, kit lists for doing the national 3 peaks or our Ben Nevis, Scafell, Pike and Snowdon. A bit of a quick whip through some of the other podcasts that we've done on and please do listen to those as well. Well worth a listen, although we do say so ourselves.
Fantastic. Well, you can find out a lot more at our app shop at www.climbers.com. -shop.com, and also there's loads of extra information on our sister website www.joebrownoutdooracademy.com.